Spring football is upon us. On Saturday, we are expecting Notre Dame to hold its first spring practice of 2021. Very excited about that, Lou. And with that is position battles. It's a new season, new quarterback. I mean, all sorts of uncertainty going into this season that has us media folk excited. So, let's dive right into position battles. We're not expecting to see a lot of these position battles in person because, we haven't gotten any word from Notre Dame, not only about the dates for spring practices, but what the media availability will look like, if media is able to see anything. But still, we'll talk a little bit about, our top Notre Dame spring position battles. We'll start with the backup quarterback. Luke, I think we agree that the starting quarterback position is pretty safely on Jack Cohn. So why was the backup quarterback a top battle for you?
Ripple effect, and with an eye toward 2022, because look, the coaches are going to say the right things, as they should, as far as it's an open competition and all. But Jack Cohn was brought in for a reason, and his experience level is on a different stratosphere than what is returning among the four others who will be vying for that position. But I'm not expecting Michael to for Brian Kelly to name who's going to be the backup. I think he
Sure.
wants to keep everyone engaged, similar to somewhat in 2016 when he had both Deshaun Kaiser, who had a very good 2015 sophomore season, but that year Malik Zaire also had a scorching start before breaking his ankle against Virginia in game 2 and getting sidelined for the rest of the season. So he kept that open all the way into August. And I anticipate that just to keep everyone engaged. Both the freshmen, Tyler Buchner and Ron Paulus III, junior, Brendan Clark, and sophomore, Drew Pyne, that just keep working on what you need on your skill sets, on your traits, etc., and everything else through the summer. And then we'll sift through it eventually in the fall camp in August.
So who do you like? Who do you think might come
I have
out?
no idea. I have no idea. I don't know if Brendan Clark is going to be available. Tyler Buchner did not have a senior season in California. Drew Pyne, he right now looks like needs some more, weight and just overall in stature to build there. Um, but there's going to be inevitably a transfer next year around this time. So that again is what I'm talking about with ripple effect for 2022 is, and it's not necessarily of who comes out number 2 in August, but who comes out number 2 by the end of the season, if not number 1.
Sure. We'll move along. Boundary cornerback. Nick McLeod has exhausted his eligibility and will hope to be picked up by an NFL team. But who starts behind him? There's plenty of question marks there.
Yeah, well, the guy who ended up finishing behind Nick McLeod at the end of last season was Cam Hart. He was recruited as a receiver in 2019, along with Kendall Abdurrahman there. So that was your two receiver recruits. But midway through his freshman year, Cam Hart, who has that long, rangy physique at about 6'2" and a half, kind of that Dante Vaughn build there, which is ideal for the boundary corner. He was the one who really wanted to change. I remember during right after he signed with Notre Dame, we did an interview with him, and he indicated that even though receiver is the glamour position, it's become more so in college football. He feels his future is best at the corner position, where he could have more control, of in his future. So this is a move that he was certainly very open to and probably wanted as well. He had 88 snaps last year. He looks the part with that range and physique and everything. It's the experience factor. Do you move Clarence Ellis or Tariq Bracy, who have had a lot of starting experience? And that was even with Clarence as a freshman last year. He was already compared by Brian Kelly to Kavari Russell, who's been probably his best corner during his time at Notre Dame. as far as just, I'm sorry, Julian Love was the best corner in Notre Dame, but he played boundary corner in 2017 and 18, earned consensus All-America honors there. Troy Pride was moved from field to the boundary in 2019 to replace Love, and then they needed to bring in Nick McLeod last year as a grad transfer because there was just so much inexperience at the position. They wanted somebody who's at least had that taste of success there.
My quick thoughts, a great scenario for Notre Dame would be if Cam Hart is ready for that boundary cornerback position. You keep Clarence Lewis out to the field, and then Tariq Bracy slides into the nickel. I think that would be
Sure.
um, a good scenario for Notre Dame moving on. Starting Rover, you lose Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah. He declared early for the NFL draft, as we would have expected after his incredible year in 2020. I mean, it's pretty obviously a big position battle. Quickly, Lou, who are some top candidates for that Rover position?
Really, we should make this starting Will/Rover because I could see potentially. Now, we talked about this last week, Mike. Notre Dame has Isaiah Pryor listed as a safety
Mm-hmm.
going into the spring. Uh, Isaiah was the backup for Jeremiah last year. He came in as a graduate transfer from Ohio State, having started at safety, but was moved there when Paul Moala was sidelined with an injury, Achilles injury, in the third game. So it seemed like he was going to be the heir apparent for Jeremiah. But if he's back at the safety position and with an Achilles, that can take a while. I'm not sure if Paul Moala is going to be around all spring as far as being able to take a lot of the work and the contact aspects. Maybe a Jack Kaiser moves from the will linebacker position to Rover. That's been seen many times. He's cross-trained there. Um, but the will position too. You got Shane Simon with 8 starts there last year, but at the end, Maris Lufa was the starter against Clemson and Alabama and had 6 tackles apiece and ended up as the leading tackler at the position. So those two positions, it's kind of a combination of what happens among those three. You had 5 candidates at that weak side linebacker position last year, and you have at least 3 this year, but that can also dictate what happens at Rover.
Breakout wide receiver is next. Who that might be? What do you think, Lou? Why was breakout receiver one of your top position battles?
Well, it's Avery Davis returns as your top receiver. Nobody else, and he caught 24 passes last year, but nobody else caught more than 7. Well, going into his senior year in 2018, Miles Boykin had only 18 career receptions, and he became a 3rd-round draft pick. Last year, we weren't even sure that Javon McKinley would come back for a 5th season because it had been a disappointing first 4 years for him, and he had 11 career catches, and he ends up as tying for the team lead in receptions last year with 42. So who is it going to be? Is it going to be Kevin Austin, whose last 2 years has been sidelined for various reasons, but was a top 100 recruit? Is it going to be Braden Lenzy, who displayed 2 years ago the flashes of his explosiveness, but has 18 career receptions, just like Lawrence Keys at the slot position? Or could it
Don't
be
say it.
Jordan
Don't say it.
Johnson?
There it
Jordan
is.
Johnson, how about that? The 5-star recruit. Now, he had 26 snaps last year, all in mop-up duty. It wasn't long ago that Will Fuller, as a freshman, caught only 6 passes. And then the next year, he caught 76 passes, including a school record 15 touchdowns, and became a first-round pick after his junior season. Now, I'm not saying that there would be such a dramatic change for Jordan, too, that he would put up those kind of numbers, but I'm sure the anticipation is very strong. But there are just so many candidates who can be that, wow, that I finally wanted to see that from him, just like somewhat with Javon McKinley, and then also Miles Boykin.
It's funny. Think back to the first game of 2020. What was it? Joe Wilkins. He had like 4 catches for
Yeah.
45 yards, and you're like,
Oh, yeah.
well, here comes Joe Wilkins. So And then he didn't end up being that guy, but I still think Joe Wilkins might be someone that
It could be.
we
I
don't.
mean, and look, Xavier Watts
Sure.
and Jay Brunell. There's a number of candidates there. So who is it? That's what makes it intriguing.
Number 5 here, new look defensive end. If Notre Dame shifts more to a 3-man front, that your techniques look a lot different. And I know one guy I want to touch on for sure is Myron Tagovailoa Amosa. Could he potentially slide over and be that big end?
Yeah. Well, Notre Dame has sent 4 defensive ends, or will send 4 defensive ends the last 2 years to the NFL. Uh, you lost Khalid Kareem and Julian Okwara 2 years ago, and this year it's Dalen Hayes and Ade Ogundeji. Now, most of the time last year, from what we've seen, Marcus Freeman, the new defensive coordinator from Cincinnati, ran a 3-3-5 scheme. But Notre Dame has recruited more so to a 4-3 scheme.
Right.
There's flexibility and all, but Brian Kelly did mention that was going to be important, was to be able to marry the scheme with the coordinator. And Marcus Freeman had said you don't want to be changing too many things around and confusing people. But there's some options there. Do you move Myron out to that strong side end position? In a 4-3, do you have the flexibility with O'Reilly Mills, who really came on late last year, became more and more of a factor? And he's 273 pounds, 6'5". He has the strength to play inside, but also the explosiveness and ability to hold the edge on the outside, that strong side end position. So that could be an interesting battle. Isaiah Foskey, I think, is being viewed as the Viper end, and he's probably in line to be the next outstanding pro prospect from that defensive end position. But he might have the size there too, maybe to work in there. But I think ideally they'd like to either maybe move Myron out there, or somebody like O'Reilly Mills has the flexibility to work at both positions. And look, in a 4-3, let's not forget Justin Adamalola.
Yeah.
He's been playing and he's been productive there. He doesn't have the size of O'Reilly Mills at about 6'2", and maybe about in the 250 range, but he's been a productive player when he's been in there. And
Very interesting, and it's chess pieces being moved around right now, and I'm sure these are debates and conversations going on in those meeting rooms with the Notre Dame coaching staff. But they don't even know until you see what you have in spring ball. So will certainly be interesting to keep an eye on. Safety next to Kyle Hamilton is the 6th top Notre Dame spring position battle here. What are you thinking there, Lou?
well, we just mentioned that Isaiah Pryor, it appears, might be moving back there. That's what Notre Dame has him listed at. That's why it'd be interesting if Saturday would be open, just to see where everybody aligns. That's the first thing that you just want to be
Right.
able to see. But even if he is not, and maybe they would want to keep him at Rover, well, you got Houston Griffith, a former top 50 recruit, back, and he, I think, might be looked at as a Javon McKinley this season. Javon McKinley was a top 60 recruit coming out of high school. Houston Griffith was a top 50 recruit, but hasn't really found himself yet. He's been tried at nickel as a freshman. He worked at the boundary corner as a sophomore. He had a wide open, position there for the strong safety slot, but they moved Sean Crawford there last year instead. So it's kind of a now or never deal. I think maybe there was a frustration because he was in the transfer portal briefly in January before the coaching staff convinced him that, hey, there's still an opportunity here. DJ Brown actually played like 245 snaps to, I think, Houston's 212 last year. So he would be more of Kyle's backup at the free safety position. But if you want to get your best players on the field, would he qualify for that role there as well?
Last but certainly not least, Lou, I'll just kick back and let you talk about the offensive line, because that one is going to be very interesting.
We should have create some kind of award this year. If somebody right now could name left tackle through right tackle, what the starting lineup will be along the offensive line against Florida State next September in the opener down in Tallahassee. There should be some prize awarded because there's so many possibilities. And that even includes a couple of true freshmen who were top recruits there with Blake Fisher and Rocco Spindler, because when you lose four starters and your fifth guy, Jared Patterson, there's been conversation about, well, do you move him out to left tackle? Which is the position he was originally recruited for and played as a freshman? Do you keep him at center and then let things fall into place? Now, Jared, I don't think is going to be available either during the spring because of the foot surgery he had last November. If Zeke Correll excels in his place, taking all the reps at center this spring, and the coaching staff decides, you know what, he's one of our five best linemen, and he functions well at center. We got to keep him in there. Then maybe that change is made. But without having that full spring to mesh with the rest of the line and to adjust to a new position, that opens up just some new question marks. Now, Josh Lugg at right tackle, that would seem like a logical step there. He has 8 career starts overall, including center himself, but I don't think he'll be moving back there. And right tackle is where he started basically the last 6 games in 2019 when Robert Hainsey was injured. And after that, it's like, who knows? I mean, Quinn Carroll in his junior year now, he was the number 68 rated recruit coming out of high school. You have Tosh Baker, one of your own favorites. Can he have a force? Can he make an impact at the left tackle spot? Andrew Kristofic, a junior, we've heard very, very, very good things about his progress. And then you have, seniors like Dylan Gibbons and Jock Dirksen, who've been in the program at the guard positions for many years there. So it's a Rubik's Cube. That's how we've described it all year. And I don't know if there's really going to be an answer that, okay, this is our definite starting lineup at the end of spring there either. I think this carries right into next August and potentially into the season as well.